The air at the funeral was thick, heavy with grief, silence, and the weight of years of unspoken words. The casket, draped in black velvet, sat at the center of the room like a dark void, pulling everyone into its cold finality. Friends, family, distant relatives, all gathered to say goodbye to a man who had, in his own way, shaped our lives. His death had been sudden, unexpected, and yet, as the hours dragged on, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. I stood by my husband's side, my hand gripping his arm a little too tightly, as if the physical contact would steady me, would keep me grounded in the face of everything I was trying to ignore. His expression was unreadable, his face a perfect mask of stoicism. But then, as the priest spoke about forgiveness and peace, I felt it. The heat of his breath against my ear, the soft, almost inaudible whisper, "I'm so glad he's gone." I froze, my heart hammered in my chest. My eyes flicked over to my husband, his lips still slightly parted, as if he hadn't noticed the world around him. But I had heard him. The words that shouldn't have been spoken. Words that sent a shiver of unease down my spine. It was a strange thing to hear at a funeral. I wanted to scream, to demand an explanation, but I couldn't. The mourners were all around us, lost in their own grief, and yet the words kept echoing in my ears. "I'm so glad he's gone." I turned to face him. His eyes met mine, but there was no trace of guilt, no recognition of the shock that must have been playing across my face. Just a cold calm, a hint of something darker lurking behind his otherwise composed exterior. "What did you say?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. He didn't flinch, didn't look away. Instead, he simply smiled, the kind of smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Nothing," he said. I'm just relieved. Relieved." The word rang in my head like a bell, its sound growing louder, sharper, the longer I stood there. I wanted to ask more, to demand an explanation, but there was something else tugging at my mind, something that held me back. There was a coldness about him that I hadn't noticed before, something unsettling, and I could feel it spreading like a chill through my bones. I turned back to the casket, trying to focus on the solemn occasion, to push down the strange, growing sense of dread that was creeping up on me. But as I looked at the casket, my mind wandered. Who was my husband really? The man I had loved for all these years, was he hiding something from me? The priest's voice began to fade into the background, his words becoming muffled, as my thoughts swirled in a haze of confusion and suspicion. What had I just heard? What did it mean? I couldn't shake the chill that had settled in my chest. Every word from my husband lingered in the air like smoke, thick and suffocating. He was standing next to me, acting as though nothing was wrong, as if his whispered words hadn't just torn through the very foundation of my understanding of him. The funeral procession continued around us, people whispering in hushed tones, their faces hidden behind handkerchiefs and tissues, their eyes red and swollen. But all I could see, all I could focus on, was him. My husband. A man who had always been my rock, my partner through thick and thin, and now, in the midst of this solemn moment, I was questioning everything. I tried to breathe through the rising panic in my chest, but it felt as if the walls of the funeral home were closing in on me. I needed answers. I needed to understand why my husband had said those words. But I couldn't confront him here, not in front of everyone. The moment felt too fragile, too public. As the ceremony carried on, I felt myself pulling away from him, instinctively distancing myself. I needed to think, to process what had just happened. The echoes of his words were replaying in my mind over and over again. "I'm so glad he's gone." But why? Why would he say such a thing? Who was he really? When the service finally ended, the mourners began to trickle out of the room, their voices low and muted. I could feel the heat of my husband's presence at my side, his hand on my back, as if everything was normal. But I couldn't pretend any longer. I turned to him, my voice tight, with a mixture of fear and anger. "We need to talk. Now." He raised an eyebrow but said nothing as we walked out of the main hall and into a quiet corridor. The funeral home was nearly empty now, and the silence felt suffocating. "What was that back there?" I demanded, my heart racing. "What did you mean by—" "I'm glad he's gone." His expression never wavered. It was as if he were immune to my shock, to the confusion that was turning my world upside down. He looked at me with those cold, calculating eyes. "It's nothing. You're overreacting." "Overreacting?" My voice trembled with the weight of my disbelief. "How could you say that? How could you say that about someone who just passed away? Someone who was close to us?" He sighed, his patience clearly wearing thin. "You don't understand, do you? It wasn't just about him. It was about everything. About what he did, the lies he told, the secrets he kept. You have no idea what kind of man he really was." I blinked, struggling to keep up with his sudden change in tone. What was he talking about? What secrets? My mind raced as the pieces started to shift, but nothing seemed to fit. I needed more. More than vague illusions. More than cryptic hints. I needed the truth. "What do you mean? What secrets?" For the first time I saw a flicker of emotion in his eyes. Something dark. Something unspoken. But before he could respond, the silence was shattered by a loud, abrupt knock on the door. My heart leaped in my chest, and for a brief moment I thought I might suffocate from the tension. "Not now," my husband muttered under his breath, his voice low and cold. But I could tell he wasn't just angry at the interruption. He was scared of what he might reveal. "Who's there?" I called, my pulse quickening. The door creaked open, and in stepped a woman, a tall figure, draped in a black veil, her face hidden in shadow. Her presence was unexpected, but something about her seemed familiar. She paused for a moment, her eyes meeting mine. And then she spoke, her voice soft, but carrying an undeniable weight. "I think it's time you knew the truth." The woman stood there, like a shadow in the doorway, her eyes never leaving mine. The air seemed to thicken as I tried to make sense of what was happening. My heart was pounding now, each beat louder than the last. Who was she, and why was she here? She wasn't someone I recognized, not someone from the funeral. She didn't belong. "Who are you?" I demanded, trying to steady my voice. She stepped forward, the faintest smile playing at the corners of her lips. "I'm someone who knows everything you've been kept in the dark about." The words hit me like a punch to the gut. My eyes darted to my husband, who now stood rigid, his face drawn tight in a way I had never seen before. There was something about the way he looked at the woman, something that spoke of years of history I couldn't even begin to understand. I took a step back, the cold creeping through my veins. "What does that mean?" I whispered, my voice barely audible. The woman shifted, her dark eyes locking onto mine with an intensity that sent chills down my spine. "It means you've been lied to. Your husband has kept secrets from you, and now it's time for the truth." My heart raced as her words echoed in my ears. Lies? Secrets? I turned to my husband, searching his face for any sign of recognition, any hint of the man I thought I knew. But there was nothing there. Nothing except a cold, calculating emptiness. He said nothing, his lips pressed together in a hard line. I could feel the tension in the room, thick and suffocating, but still, I demanded the answers. "What kind of secrets? What have you been hiding from me?" The woman sighed, the sound almost pitying. "It's not just what he's hidden from you. It's what he's done to others." My mind raced, but nothing made sense. "Others? What are you talking about?" She glanced at my husband, her eyes narrowing with something almost like disdain. "You're not the only one he's betrayed. You're not the only one he's hurt." I couldn't breathe. The words seemed to hang in the air like an impossible weight. Betrayed? Hurt? My mind swirled with a million questions, none of them making sense. This woman had to be lying. My husband couldn't be the person she was describing. Could he? The woman stepped closer, her voice now low, almost a whisper. He's been hiding his involvement in things far darker than you could imagine. He's been playing both sides, using people, manipulating them to get what he wants. I felt the floor beneath me shift, and I took another step back, my breath shallow. No, that's not possible. My husband, he wouldn't. He wouldn't? She interrupted, her gaze sharpening. Then explain this. She reached into her purse and pulled out an envelope, handing it to me with a steady hand. My heart skipped a beat as I took the envelope from her, the weight of it strange and heavy. My fingers trembled as I tore it open, and inside was a series of photographs, disturbing images I could barely process. The first photograph was of my husband, but not as I knew him. It was a picture of him standing in a dark alleyway, his arm around a man I didn't recognize, his face twisted in a way that sent a ripple of nausea through me. The second photo was of him, this time sitting at a table with a group of strangers, their faces all blurred except for his, laughing, sharing a secret that was too dark to be shared in daylight. The third. It was a photograph of a ledger, detailing transactions I couldn't begin to understand. I felt the blood drain from my face. The world tilted beneath me as I processed the betrayal that was unfolding before my eyes. What is this? I whispered, my voice barely above a breath. What does this mean? The woman's eyes flicked to my husband, and then back to me. It means he's not the man you think he is. It means he's been leading a double life, one you've been kept in the dark about. And you need to ask yourself, why? Why was he hiding this from you? I could barely hold the photos in my hand. My vision was starting to blur, my mind spinning as everything I thought I knew about my life, my marriage, shattered into pieces. The man I had spent years with, the man I trusted, had been hiding something so dark, so twisted, I didn't even know him. I turned to my husband, my voice trembling with the weight of the accusation. Is this true? Is this what you've been doing behind my back? Who are you? For the first time I saw his mask crack. His face was no longer the composed, unflappable man I thought I knew. His eyes flickered, just for a moment a flash of panic, and then it was gone, replaced with the same coldness that had been there all along. You don't understand, he said, his voice low, almost pleading. It wasn't supposed to happen this way. I didn't want you to know. Then what was it all for? I demanded. What have you been doing? What kind of man are you? He looked at me, his face a mixture of regret and something far darker. I'm the man who's been doing what he had to do, to survive, to protect you. I shook my head, unable to process his words, unable to comprehend the lies, the betrayal. Protect me? From what? From the truth? The room fell silent, and I knew, in that moment, that everything was about to change. The silence between us was deafening. My mind raced, trying to piece together everything I had just learned, but it all felt like a puzzle with too many missing pieces. My husband stood there, his face a mask of cold detachment, but there was something in his eyes, something vulnerable, something raw, that betrayed the hard exterior he had so carefully crafted over the years. You didn't want me to know the truth, I said, my voice hoarse, barely able to keep the emotion in check. You didn't want me to know what you've been doing. The man you really are. He shook his head slowly, almost regretfully. I never meant for it to get this far. I didn't want to hurt you. I didn't want you to find out this way. But you did, I shot back, anger flaring within me. You hid it from me. You lied to my face. For years, and now you expect me to just accept it? I never wanted you to know, he said again, but there was no apology in his tone, only a cold resignation. He looked at me, his eyes hardening. I didn't want you involved in any of this. It was supposed to be over. The deals, the people, everything. I was trying to protect you from it. All of it. Protect me? I repeated, the words tasting bitter on my tongue. From what? From the truth? From knowing who you really are? The woman who had brought all this to light remained silent, watching us with an almost clinical detachment, as if this was all some twisted game to her. She was the one who had pulled the veil back, and now there was no turning back. My husband's world, the one he had kept hidden from me, was spilling out into the light, and it was darker, more dangerous than I ever could have imagined. "What kind of deals?" I demanded. "Who were you working with? What did you do?" His jaw clenched, and for the first time I saw a flicker of guilt in his eyes. It was brief, but it was there, just long enough for me to catch it like a shadow crossing his face. He opened his mouth as if to say something, but the words caught in his throat. Finally he spoke, his voice low and strained. "It's not that simple. I got involved with people I shouldn't have, dangerous people. And I did things I'm not proud of. I thought I could fix it. Get out. But you can't just walk away from these kinds of people." His words were like a dagger to my heart. The man I had trusted with everything, the man I had shared my life with, was now revealing himself to be a stranger. Every promise, every vow we had made to each other felt like a lie. Who were these people? I asked, almost whispering now, afraid of the answer. "What did you do?" He looked away, his hands trembling slightly. "I was in too deep," he muttered. "They knew everything about me. They had leverage. I had no choice." "Leverage? What kind of leverage?" The question seemed to hang in the air, my breath coming faster now, a mix of panic and disbelief. The woman took a step forward, her dark eyes locked on mine. "He doesn't want you to know the worst of it, but I'll tell you. You deserve to know the truth." I turned to her, my eyes wide with shock. "What do you mean?" She looked at my husband with something almost like contempt before answering. He was involved in criminal activities. Money laundering. The kind of people who don't care about anyone but themselves. They don't hesitate. If they think someone's a liability, they get rid of them. I staggered back, the weight of her words crashing over me like a tidal wave. My husband was involved with criminals? My mind could barely process the information. My entire world was unraveling in front of me. "No," I whispered. "You're lying. You're making this up. He would never." "I'm not lying," she said, her voice cutting through my denial. "I know it's hard to hear, but it's the truth, and I'm not the only one who knows it." I looked at my husband, pleading with my eyes for him to deny it, to explain it away. But there was nothing. He stood there, his face a mask of sorrow and resignation, and all I could hear was the deafening silence between us. He wasn't denying it. He wasn't fighting to protect me, or us. He had already given up on our marriage, on everything we had built. "You've been lying to me for years," I said, my voice shaking with a mixture of anger and heartbreak. "You've been keeping this from me. Protecting me from what? Your crimes? Your betrayal? I never wanted you involved in any of this," he said again, his voice barely above a whisper. "I just wanted to keep you safe. You don't know what these people are capable of." The woman took another step closer, her expression hardening. "And now the debts are catching up. He can't run from them anymore. The truth is coming out, and there's no hiding it." The world felt like it was spinning, and I could barely hold on to my thoughts as the gravity of the situation settled in. The betrayal was too much. My mind was drowning in a sea of unanswered questions. I didn't know who this man was anymore. The man I thought I married, the man I had built my life around, had vanished, and in his place stood a stranger. "You knew all along," I whispered to the woman. "You knew what he was hiding. Why did you wait until now?" She met my gaze, her eyes dark and knowing. "Because you needed to see it for yourself. You needed to hear it from him. You needed the truth, no matter how painful it was." The silence between us stretched on, thick and suffocating. I could feel my heart hammering in my chest, each beat echoing in my ears as the world around me seemed to blur and fade into the background. My mind was struggling to keep up, trying to piece together the broken fragments of the life I thought I knew. But it was slipping through my fingers like sand. I looked at my husband standing there as if nothing had changed. But everything had changed. The man I had trusted, the man I had shared my life with, was a stranger. And now I was left with a terrifying question. What was I supposed to do with this truth? Could I ever look at him the same way again? Could I ever trust him again? "You've been lying to me for years," I said again, my voice trembling, but this time it wasn't with anger. It was with heartbreak. "For years you've been living a double life. You've been involved in things that put us both at risk, and you never told me. I married a man I didn't even know. My husband's eyes, cold and distant, met mine. For the first time I saw something. Regret? Guilt? It was fleeting, gone as quickly as it came, but it was enough for me to know that this wasn't just some mistake. He knew what he had done. He knew the consequences. "I never wanted this for you," he said softly, his voice cracking with the weight of what he had kept hidden. "I thought I could protect you. I thought I could keep you safe." "Safe?" I repeated, the words sounding hollow. "From what? From the truth? From your crimes? I never wanted you to get involved," he whispered, the words almost drowned out by the weight of his guilt. "I thought I could protect you, keep you away from the people I was dealing with. I didn't want you to know what I'd done, what they made me do." I took a step back, the room feeling smaller, the air heavier with every word he said. "So, you thought keeping me in the dark was better? You thought that lying to me, hiding your life from me, would protect me?" His silence was all the answer I needed, and it cut deeper than anything he could have said. I had spent years of my life believing in a man who had built a life of deception around me. A man who had chosen his own secrets over honesty, over the love and trust we were supposed to share. I felt sick to my stomach. My knees threatened to buckle, but I steadied myself against the wall, unwilling to show any more weakness. I had to stay strong. For me. "Why did you do it?" I asked, my voice breaking. "Why did you get involved with them, with people who could destroy everything we had?" "I didn't have a choice," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "It was the only way to survive, to make sure we had a future. I thought it was the only way to give you everything you deserved." The woman who had been standing in the corner, watching us with an almost detached expression, finally spoke again. He thought he could control it. "But you can't control people like that. They get to you. They own you. And once you're in, there's no getting out." I looked at her, my emotions a twisted mess of confusion, anger, and betrayal. "And you? Why are you here? Why did you come forward now?" She met my gaze with an almost unsettling calmness. "Because you deserve to know the truth. All of it. You deserve to understand the choices your husband made and why he's so desperate to keep you in the dark. You're not the first person he's hurt, and you won't be the last if you don't make him face what he's done." I turned back to my husband, my heart aching as I saw the man I once loved, a man who had betrayed me in ways I couldn't even begin to fathom. "What do you want from me now?" I asked quietly. "What am I supposed to do with all of this?" His eyes softened for a brief moment, but it was fleeting, and when he spoke, his voice was tight, almost pleading. "I never wanted to hurt you. I thought if I could fix it, if I could keep you safe, it would all be worth it. But now I see. I've already lost you, haven't I?" I felt the weight of his words. The loss, the finality of it all. And I realized then that he wasn't asking for forgiveness. He wasn't trying to make amends. He was just trying to hold on to whatever piece of me he could before everything came crashing down. I shook my head slowly. "You can't keep me safe anymore. You can't protect me from the truth. You've already broken me, and now it's too late to fix it." The room fell silent once again, but this time It wasn't the heavy silence of confusion or guilt. It was the silence of a final understanding. I had reached the end of this chapter, and though my heart felt like it was being ripped out of my chest, I knew deep down that I couldn't go back. Not to the man I thought I knew. Not to the life we had built. "Leave," I said softly, the words coming out clearer than I expected. "Leave, and don't come back. I need to move on. I need to find my own truth, without you." His face crumpled as if the weight of his actions had finally caught up with him. He opened his mouth to say something, but no words came. Instead, he turned, his shoulders slumped with defeat, and walked out of the room, leaving behind nothing but the echoes of what we once had. I stood there for a long time, staring at the empty space where he had been, and for the first time in years I felt a strange sense of peace wash over me. The truth had come out. The betrayal had been exposed. And now, I was free. The house was quiet after my husband left. The world outside seemed unchanged, the birds still singing in the trees, the wind still whispering through the cracks in the windows, but inside, everything was different. The life I had built with him was nothing more than a shattered illusion, pieces scattered at my feet like broken glass. And though the pain was sharp, the relief that followed was even sharper. I sank into the nearest chair, my body heavy with exhaustion, but my mind wouldn't stop racing. I felt the weight of everything I had just learned, the magnitude of the betrayal, the lies, the years of my life that had been spent unknowingly walking beside a stranger. It was hard to breathe, but I couldn't stop myself from thinking about what had come before, what I thought was love, what I thought was a future. I wasn't sure how long I sat there, lost in the silent void of my own thoughts. Time didn't feel real anymore. Nothing did. But then, a soft knock at the door snapped me out of my reverie. I didn't need to look through the peephole. I already knew who it was. I stood, my legs trembling, and walked to the door, my heart pounding once again. The woman who had brought all of this crashing down around me was standing on the other side, her face as unreadable as it had been since the moment we met. She didn't speak at first, just waited, as if giving me the time I needed. "You left him, didn't you?" Her voice was soft, almost gentle, but there was something in it that made me uneasy. Something calculated, like she knew something I didn't. "I did," I said, the word tasting like ash in my mouth. "He's gone, and I don't think he's coming back." She nodded, her eyes searching mine. "Good, you deserve better. You deserve a life without all of his secrets, his lies. A life where you can breathe freely again." I shook my head, a bitter laugh escaping my lips. "Breathe? After everything? After what he did? After all the years of lies?" Her eyes softened, and for the first time I saw a flicker of empathy. "I know it's hard, but you don't have to carry this burden alone. You don't have to keep his secrets for him. You don't have to protect him anymore." I swallowed hard, her words striking a chord deep inside me. For so long I had been trying to protect him, trying to shield myself from the truth that I was too afraid to face. But now, the truth was here, staring me in the face, and it was time to stop running from it. "I don't know who I am without him," I whispered, my voice thick with emotion. "I don't know how to move on from this, from everything we had. I don't know how to walk away." She looked at me for a long moment, her expression unreadable, and then finally she spoke again, her voice steady and firm. "You start by taking control of your own life. You stop living in the shadow of his lies. You start over. Start over." The words felt foreign to me, almost impossible. How could I ever start over after everything? But deep down, I knew she was right. I couldn't keep living in a world where my every decision was shaped by his deceit. I couldn't keep holding on to the remnants of a love that had never really existed. I had to let go. For me. "I'm scared," I admitted, the tears I had been holding back finally falling freely. "I don't know how to do this alone. I don't know who I am anymore." The woman stepped closer, her presence calm and reassuring. You are strong, stronger than you realize. And you're not alone. You have a future ahead of you, one that's yours. Take it. Don't look back. I took a deep breath, my heart still heavy with the weight of the past, but for the first time in days, there was a flicker of hope, a tiny spark that I could build on, a chance to reclaim myself, to rebuild my life from the ground up. I'll try, I said, my voice steadying. I'll try to move on. I'll try to be strong. The woman gave me a nod of approval. That's all anyone can do. The rest will come with time. She turned to leave, but then paused, her back still to me. One last thing, she said, her tone shifting to something more serious. You don't have to forgive him. You don't owe him that. Not after what he's done. I stood in the doorway, watching her disappear into the distance, her figure fading into the shadows as she walked away. I stood there for a long time, the weight of her words settling in my chest. I didn't have to forgive him. Not yet. Not ever, maybe. But what mattered now was that I was free. Free from the lies, free from the chains I had been wearing for so long. And so, I closed the door behind me, and in that moment, I knew that my life had just begun. I didn't know what the future held, but I was no longer afraid of it. I was no longer afraid of what I had to face. I had been through the darkest night, and I had survived. And now, I would find my own path.